Guys, I'm not going to bury the lead on this one. I just found my new favorite e-bike. This thing is absolutely fantastic. In this review, we will be looking at 4 things. We will look at the assembly, including the build quality. We will look at the stated specifications on the bike. We will look at the real-life results from actually riding this thing around. And then lastly, we look at the fun factor, because the specs don't always tell the full story, and this bike is a perfect example for that, because although the specs are very good, the fun factor is through the roof. So let's start with the assembly process. Out of all the bikes that I've tested, this is the most difficult to assemble. That being said, it is still very easy to put together. The real difference is that on most of these bikes, I do have to install the handlebars and the front wheel and then the pedals. On this bike, I also have to install the front brakes, which was unique. I had never had to do that before, as well as the rear suspension, which you see me doing right here. Again, not a big deal. It's just that you do have to put together a few more things. Luckily, all of the tools that are required do come with it. As far as the build quality goes, I would put this bike right in the middle of all the bikes that I've tested. There was nothing that really stood out one way or another for being very high quality or being very low quality. It's just a good all-around bike. One thing that stands out is that they chose to use an all-steel frame as opposed to the other bikes I've tested, which were mostly aluminum. I actually prefer the steel as it's easier to modify, as you'll see later in this video, and also it helps keep the cost down. As for the specs, the battery is a 48 volt, 25 amp hour pack, and the motor is a 1000 watt with a peak output of 2000 watts. The top speed is stated at up to 36 miles per hour with a range of up to 80 miles. Next up, let's get this bike turned on. We do have an on-off switch here for the battery pack, and then there's an S switch right here that gets the display turned on. You do have an NFC card that has to be nearby in order to get this thing fired up, which is awesome. That'll make it less likely to be stolen. You've got a large number display here, also a little sweeping dial that shows your miles per hour or kilometers per hour. You've got an indicator right here that shows what your power setting is. You've obviously got your battery setting, and then of course other stuff like your turn signals will show up there. You can do hazards if you want. You can turn them both on at the same time. You can go ahead and turn them off. Of course, you've got headlight right there. And then, like all the other bikes, you've got a nice little loud horn right there. So let's go ahead and hit the trail with this thing just to test it out a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and charge it up fully. And we'll do some long range testing and some speed testing. All right, guys, I got a first little test drive in. I also have the battery fully charged and a camera mounted for our long range test. My initial thoughts, I absolutely love the suspension on this bike, specifically the rear suspension. This is the first e-bike that I've tested that is really dialed in for a guy my size from the factory. I'm about 170 pounds with my boots on, and every other bike I've tested has been way too stiff, specifically in the rear. So I'm always hitting the upper limit of the shock. This one is absolutely spot on. The other thing that I noticed, this display. This is the best display that I've got on any bike in the shade. So in the shade, it's a little hard to tell on the camera, but it's really easy to read with the giant numbers. Unfortunately, when you're in direct sunlight, it's basically impossible to read. So it's kind of a weird situation where it's my favorite display, but it's also really hard to read in the sun. So now we'll take this thing on a test drive, a little bit of a long range test. We'll see how many miles we can get out of this thing. I'm not sure if I'll be able to fully drain this battery. It is a 25 amp hour battery, and I believe it's rated at 80 miles. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to get this thing drained, but we'll see what we can do. All right, here we go on our little top speed run. All right, we're at 20. Holy cow. 25. 30. 31. Looks like that's where it's pegged out. All right, here we go, up the incline. Let's see what it can do. I call this testing hill because I bring all my e-bikes here for testing, specifically because it drains the battery and lowers the top speed like crazy. So the other bikes were about 15 right here. Let's see what it can hold. 16. Can it keep it? Oh, dang, it will. All right, well, we've got a new record. 18. The other bikes were about 16 right here. I guess the next closest. Some of the bikes were down to 11. I'm going motor only, no pedaling here. The other bikes were about 16 to 18 in this range. We are at 21. It's having no issues. We are showing a pretty good drop on our battery. That is very normal. All right, now we're at the top where it's flat. We'll see if we still have the top speed. Oh yeah, no problems. Oh, we are just a hair under that 31 we were getting before. Oh, there it is. There's, oh, 32. All right. While we are in the neighborhood, let's head over to the most beautiful lookout. Hopefully we don't have too much smoke. Luckily, it's been a pretty mild fire season. This is one of my most favorite places in the entire world. Check this view out. Woo-wee. All right, guys, so we were able to get some real-life testing done, so we can now compare our real-life specs to the stated specs. The stated top speed, 36 miles an hour. The actual top speed that I got, 31 miles an hour, unless I was going downhill, and that shouldn't count. The stated range, 80 miles. I don't think I'll ever get 80 miles out of this bike. It's definitely not the most efficient bike that I've tested. In fact, it's probably whatever the e-bike equivalent of a gas guzzler is. It goes through the battery like crazy, and that is because it has a 1,000-watt motor with a 2,000-watt peak power. So it can really drain this battery down. I did an 11-mile loop that has that testing hill twice for a total of 22 miles, and the battery was more or less drained at the end of that. Could you go 80 miles? Yeah, if you were riding along with your buddy who didn't have an e-bike and he was going 6 miles an hour and you're just trying to keep pace with him. But in real life, if you're going to be in the throttle like I am, 20 to 30 miles maybe. Where this bike really shines is how well balanced it is. This bike is pretty much exactly what I would design if I was designing an e-bike. Like if I had a catalog and I could pick out the biggest motor that I could afford, the biggest battery that I could afford, instead of going with some space-aged aluminum frame construction, just real simple steel construction, and then spend a bunch of time getting it balanced right with exactly the right suspension and then a very simple display. That's exactly what you've got here, which leads us to our final chapter, the fun factor. Guys, I love this bike so much. I've already done what I do to every vehicle that I love. I've modified it. Take a look at these riv nuts I've installed in the frame here. Let me show you what those are for. I started off with some square tubing that I bent into foot pegs, and then I welded up some round tubing that I had to make some handlebars. I then drilled some holes into the bike's frame where I then added some riv nuts and then installed my little contraption. After that, I added some handlebar grips to make a perfect little seat for my daughter. Let's see how she likes it. All right, feeling good?
Yeah.
Let's roll, baby.
Yay! This is funky.
Should we go faster?
Yeah!
All right, here we go. Speed 2. Full speed ahead!
No.
Okay.
I hate this one.
That's not too scary, right?
Hang on. Go backwards. I love when we feel like we're about to jump.
Yeah? You want to go back over that one?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Oh, no. That feels so cool.
Is this your favorite bike out of all the ones that I've tested?
Yeah.
Is it because you get to ride with me?
Yeah, and I like it because it has handlebars.
Exactly.
This is so fun.
I know, right?
I never been this far away from home.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.